Here.
Brown.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
And Behrman.
Here.
Have to get your mics tonight.
Hanging around on that.
We all rise for the pledge in a moment of silence, and then Mike will lead the pledge for us.
Good. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone, to our regular January meeting. We're finally having regular January weather, right? So thankful that you're here. Thanks for joining us tonight. This is our organizational meeting, and I'm going to turn this part of the meeting over to Mike as a temporary chairperson to run the meeting until we have our elections.
Thank you. The board would take action to approve the agenda as printed. I need a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion? Do I have a second?
Support.
Support? Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
We're, the meeting minutes, we're actually approving more than just, oh, never mind. Yep, aye. Support.
Thank you. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the consent agenda. The board will take action to approve the consent agenda minutes from the December 8th meeting, December 15th meeting, the December 21st meeting, January 5th meeting, and pay bills for the amount of $385,371.64, and staff resignations of Bonnie Barbour and Lisa Salisbury. Sowerberry. I always have trouble with that. Sowerberry. Okay. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Got a motion and support. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to point out and express my gratitude for the financial info that we have in our packets that tells us the percentage of the fiscal year of the budget that we've spent, which is what I was asking for in previous meetings. So I am very, very thankful that the finances was put together this way. So that's my.
Thank you.
And I would like to give recognition for Bonnie Barbour. She was a school secretary, has resigned and accepted a position in Waverly Public Schools. Ms. Barbour worked for Albion Public Schools for approximately 19 years in various capacities, including food service, paraprofessional, RTC, ISS coordinator, and secretary. And also Ms. Lisa Sowerberry, who was a social worker. She resigned to accept a position in Potterville. Ms. Sowerberry served Albion Public Schools for 25 years as a school social worker for elementary students. We would like to say thank them for their service, and we wish them the best in their future endeavors.
Absolutely. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 7-0. Going on, the next,
Presentation.
the next thing is presentation, board recognition, school board recognition month.
I'll turn this over to Mrs. Cotis and her students.
Hi, my name is Mrs. Cotis, and I brought 3 students from Mrs. Arts' first grade
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aw. I have one, honey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How cute.
Did you see the wildcat paw on the front?
I thought maybe you guys deserve a little extra something special this year, so, the PTO and, the Albion Association, Education Association members got together to give you a very small token of our appreciation.
Amanda,
Yes, there you go.
take that as a compliment.
Because I know this year has been extra challenging for all of us this year, so thank you from the
Thank you.
PTO and the AEA for all you've done, and
Thank
the
you.
cookies are from the NEA.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Girl makes them hairstyle.
So when we talked to the older students about what they liked for us to say to you and how to thank you, they had some great ideas. They wanted you to have flowers, so you do. They wanted you to eat cheesecake. You have cookies.
Close enough.
They wanted you to, they wanted us to have a dance for you. Yeah, that's not happening.
Oh, come on. Do you have music over there? This is being recorded.
We're so thankful that the kids could come and share with you, and then our older kids think of you as superheroes, they said. So you have a certificate inside, from our students also. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
your, all your efforts and all the work that you put into this, and working on your school board. A thankless job, but we certainly appreciate all of you. Come on board.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is citizens' comments. Persons addressing the Board of Education shall be limited to comments to agenda items only and to no more than 5 minutes. Use proper protocol and decorum, please. Anybody want to speak? Anybody want to speak?
I'm not going to even take 5 minutes, and I know that's hard for you to believe because I like to talk, but from my heart, I truly want to tell you thank you. I have not been with you long, but the 4 or 5 short months that I've been here, I have to tell you, I have never seen a group as dedicated to your students, to your district, as the 7, 8, 9 of you are. And it's very heartening for me to see this. You guys have been put in tough situations where I know there were times that you didn't have the background to really know what was happening. You struggled trying to fight your way up the path, and you've done a phenomenal job. And it's not going to get easier, and you know that. But please know how much I appreciate everything that you're doing for your kids, your staff, and your community. It's been fun to watch.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Any other citizens' comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. The next thing on the agenda will be updates from Marshall Collaboration. Dr. Randy Davis will be talking on about 3 different items, at least. So, Randy Davis, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening.
Happy School Board Month. How great is that? Sonia asked for a presentation on gap analysis, And I also wanted to give a presentation today on how Marshall does with economically disadvantaged students in comparison to all of your neighboring districts that are currently taking schools of choice kids out of your districts. And there are two different graphs, and there's different ways to look at this. And I was the old director of research and evaluation for Star Commonwealth for a couple of years, and so bear with me because I'm a real purist when it comes to stats, and I want to make sure that we understand what we're doing here. When we talk about gap analysis, which is looking at the gap, the learning gap between economically disadvantaged subgroup and the non-economically disadvantaged subgroup, the best way to look at that data is when you find a cohort, which means that you've got the same group of kids roughly, and you're tracking those kids over a period of time through the same experience at grade level to grade level to grade level. If you start taking a look at gap when you only just take a snapshot of 1 year and look at that comparison, that doesn't tell you much. It's just a snapshot, it's not a trend, okay? So I wanted to look at math and reading. Go ahead, Ben.
Can we kill a light?
Are we good?
I was just wondering, maybe it's just me, but I was wondering if maybe we could dim a light or
Can we-
something. 'Cause
Anybody know how to do that?
Move my chair.
I can go hit buttons.
It'd be just the light over there at the corner.
And I'm sorry for the audience, if you guys want to, okay.
That's right behind the books.
Behind the books.
Second shift.
No, go the other way.
You have to have a
These
key
are
in
the-
this over there.
Well, I could just move.
No, one hand closer. You really do have, because it's like that, so you have to wiggle and wiggle. I had a key, but I had to turn it in. Should've kept it. I should've kept it.
Okay.
I retired and I turned it in. So I got keys for everything.
Can you see that? Okay, good deal. Okay, so this is a gap analysis of our economically disadvantaged for a 5-year cohort in mathematics. This line right here are the students that are non-economically disadvantaged, and this is the students that are economically disadvantaged. And it's the average performance on mathematics at 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, or 7th. So really from 2009 to 2013. And these are MEP scores. We can't use them with 2014 because of the M-step and I guess I'll editorialize.
Good.
The mess up that they did with the state assessment process, because when they moved to a new test, they literally threw out the opportunity to measure cohort accurately. So here's the gap that this group started with in 3rd grade when the assessment for MEP started, because we assess and MEP for 3rd through 8th grade in mathematics, and then 11th grade on the MME. This gap right here is the difference between 65, which is the average for mathematics in 3rd grade for this group, and 38. And as you see, the gap increased a bit in math through this process, and then it started taking an upswing. My hope was in 2014 that would continue to close. What we're finding as we go through these charts is you'll see that once a gap exists, it's very difficult to close it. Now, we did close it by a couple points. So this is 27 difference in gap, and over here this is 26 difference in gap. Not much of a change, right? Ben, next one.
Wait, Randy?
Huh?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Can you give me any idea on what the standard deviations for these data look like?
No, I can't.
Okay.
I don't have that data with me in front of me. Okay, so this is the 6-year cohort of students that started in 3rd grade together in 2008, and they went to 2013. And the gap here 59 to 65. And they stayed together a little bit. Then there was another big gap in mathematics going through that, and the gap enlarged over here in 2013. So what we're seeing is that there is a gap, and it continues to grow in the mathematics area. And let's go to the next slide. For reading, economically disadvantaged 5-year cohort, again, the group that started in 3rd grade in 2009. Their gap at the start, as I was looking at this, is, what is that, 19? And over here, the gap ended up being 15. So we did close the gap. And what's interesting with reading is we actually closed the gap a little more in the 2nd year. It gapped a little bit more, then it started closing up again. Reading seems to be pretty decent. I want you to notice that the average for the non-economically disadvantaged is 80% across the board in each grade level proficient in reading. And you have to remember that every single grade that they go into the next grade has higher rigor and more stringent standards in regards to the concept that they have to master. Go to the next one. And our 6-year cohort then for reading was 39 to 73 and 62 to 85. So we actually did close the gap considerably here. There was a large gap here. We started to close it. Very nice closure here. Then it started to kind of even out, and we tracked. It's interesting that we followed the same line as both groups. The key to addressing gap, number one, is to close the gap while you're also maintaining or raising the bar for every student. So the whole group needs to raise as your gap also closes at the same time. Yeah.
Randy, our students went in 2013, so does that include Albion students or not?
Well, actually, non-economically disadvantaged in our Marshall Public Schools includes students that reside in Albion and everywhere else that they come into a school of choice. We have a number of schools.
But it doesn't include our 9, 12.
No, this is MEEP. This is only MEEP scores.
Grade 8, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
So with that, I wanted to share that with you to show that we've been paying attention, and I've been doing this gap analysis since 2009 in Marshall, because Marshall has always had a group of economically disadvantaged students that a lot of times get, when I came in, it was the question of what are we doing in paying attention to that group. Then the state, if you recall, went to the priority school system, which you guys got established with, and also the focus school. And the focus schools are those schools that have the highest 10%, largest gap in the 10% of the buildings across the state. And one of our elementaries, Hughes Elementary, was identified as a focus school. I got to tell you, 3 years later, we are no longer a focus school. We worked ourselves off of that. So we were able to close the gap efficiently to get out of that standard. The middle school currently is a focus school. I believe we should have been off the focus school registry this year, but because of the M-STEP being introduced last year, they didn't make any changes. And so they're still there as a focus school, but I'm convinced that we're going to be able to work ourselves off of that when they start looking back at that data again. Yeah. No, I would say they're wider. And we do that through the different assessments that we do for kindergarten ready, and we do that through our reading assessments and those types of things, and there is a larger gap. Once the kids get used to coming to school and get socialized to the learning process and get comfortable with the learning environment, then they start to close the gap just naturally. And then there's a fundamental gap that's really hard to close. It seems to maintain itself a lot of times through the years. But I think most districts, you're not going to find this data, and you're not going to have this conversation. So I just want to let you know that this is important stuff that we've been focusing on for some time now. Okay, so now I want to share with you another IDEX is a group that we contracted with this year to professionally take a look at the public data that's available in all the resources across the state relative to our district and any district across the state. You actually have a contract with IDEX, okay? I wanted to take a look at the MEP performance comparison of our economically disadvantaged population and our non-economically disadvantaged population with our cohorts in the with our neighboring districts in the area. So I asked them to prepare this process or this report for me, so I could share this with you. Go ahead, next one. What we did in this report, you need to get your head out of the game about looking at the graph lines for a second. I want you to understand that these charts that I'm going to show you, both graph lines that you're going to see on every single chart are Marshall students. They're either Marshall students that are economically disadvantaged or Marshall students that are non-economically disadvantaged, okay, in those two cohorts. What we've done is we develop a graph, and the zero line on the graph is the average of the comparison group we're looking at. So when you look at economically disadvantaged for Marshall, you're looking at how many percentage points higher or lower are they performing relative to the comparison group of the graph. And at the same graph, you can see how our non-economically disadvantaged kids are comparing also to their cohorts of non-economically disadvantaged in that particular district. So for example, if we were comparing Marshall to Albion, it would be Albion's percentage would be the same zero line would represent the average performance for economically disadvantaged and also the average performance for non-economic. It's just a reference point. After you look at the reference point, our graph would indicate whether each of our groups are performing higher or lower than their peer cohorts. Okay, do you follow?
The
Okay.
zero is a summary of everybody else that's not marked.
Within that subgroup.
Yep.
Okay, and it represents two different subgroups, okay? Okay, so we're going to look at each peer district. We took a look at the MEP data because it's the most consistent data we can look at, and it's math, reading, science, social science, and writing. We also examined the average across the peer group. There's one caveat. We looked at Marshall Academy, and their numbers are so small that their N size is not appropriate in regards to comparisons. So you can't draw a lot of good comparisons out of Marshall Academy even to Albion schools. You can't really draw these good conclusions out of it for Marshall. Go ahead. So Marshall, Concord, Homer, Jackson, Olivet, Springport, and Western. Did I catch them all? That's our neighboring districts, right? Our size at the time of this report was at the beginning of the year is 2526. Our free and reduced lunch is 32.4% across the district. In particular buildings, that's larger. So like in Gordon Elementary, it's 41%, you know, different things like that. Concord has 723 students with free and reduced at 47%. Homer, 1,098 students with free and reduced at 60%. Jackson, 5,486 students at 71% free and reduced. Marshall Academy, only 211 students. That was before the year started, at 22%. Olivet, 1,496 students at 37%. Springport, 964 students at 56%. And Western, Parma Western, at 2,938 at 36%. Parma Western and Marshall are probably the closest comparative group in regards to population and economically disadvantaged. Okay? Go ahead, Ben. So in our peers, what we did is we took the performance of economically disadvantaged across all of those districts and came up with the average, and then we compared our average to their average. Okay? So in Marshall's comparison group, for mathematics, the red line is economically disadvantaged, and the non-economically disadvantaged is the lighter line. You can see that this is the zero line right here for the average of all of those districts put together. And from 2012 to 2014, we've had an increase in our economically disadvantaged performing, ending at their performance at around 8% higher than their economically disadvantaged peers in all of the other groups together. And our non-economically students are at around 12% higher than all the average non-economically disadvantaged students in mathematics. In reading, the zero line is actually below the graph, so it doesn't come on the graph, because our performance levels are a little bit higher. Economically disadvantaged is this line. Interesting enough, they are at 13% higher than economically disadvantaged students in the peer group across all those districts. And our non-economic are functioning at around 10% higher than their cohorts. If you look at science, 2012, 13, 14, again, straight line, straight up. The zero line is here on comparison for average. And you can see that our economically disadvantaged are at around 13% higher than their cohorts in the other districts, and our non-economically disadvantaged are at 15% higher performing than the peers across the board. Social science, I don't know what to tell you about social science. Social science, we're doing really well in non-economically disadvantaged. We're at 12% higher. Actually, I'm sorry, take that back. We're at 10% higher than their cohorts. We are higher with economically disadvantaged at around 4% for this past year, but we were under the average of the group for the 3 years prior to that. And in writing, the zero line is below the graph because we're that high. Economically disadvantaged students are this line right here, and they're at around 10% higher than their cohorts, and we're around 15% or so higher than their cohorts in the other groups. So just by looking at the peer comparison, Marshall clearly is outperforming both for economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged students across the comparison group. Go to the next one. We break this down for Concord. Look at the line for Concord as far as Marshall. Economic and non-economically disadvantaged are making the same gains, and we're close to 20% higher in both groups than Concord in 2014. In reading, we're around 8% higher in non-economic. For economically disadvantaged, we're around 12% higher. In science, we're higher, around 10% in both groups. In social studies, we are actually 10%, actually 13% for non-economic, and around 10% for economically disadvantaged. And in writing, we're higher than the average. Here's the average line for Concord, and we're performing at around 10% higher in both groups. Go to the next one, Ben. For Homer, here's their comparison line. Economically disadvantaged are performing 8% to 9% higher than their cohorts in Homer, and our non-economically disadvantaged are around 11 to actually 12% higher. In reading, we're higher, much higher, because the zero line's down here. We're 25% higher for economically disadvantaged than their cohorts in Homer, and we're 20% higher than non-economically disadvantaged. In science, we're 15% higher for economically disadvantaged. In social studies, we're just a little bit higher than Homer in social studies. And for writing, just to escalate this, we're at around 18%, 19% higher than their cohorts in Homer. Go to the next one. In Jackson, our economically disadvantaged are 20% higher than their cohorts. In math, in reading, they're around 25% higher. In science, they're around 16% higher. In social studies, they're around 8% higher, and in writing, they're around 17% higher. Go to the next one. Skip Marshall Academy. Olivet, good district, strong performance. Our economically disadvantaged are just a shy higher than their average, but we are more positive. We are economically disadvantaged are 9% higher in reading, performing 9% higher in science, performing almost 10% lower in social studies, and in writing, we're performing at least 10% higher in writing. So across the board, this is the one right here that only shows that we're lower in any of the subset groups comparison for economically disadvantaged in their cohorts. Go to the next one, please. Ben, the next one. Oh, this is Springport. Springport, economically disadvantaged are at 13% higher in math. We are at 14 to 15% higher in reading. We are at 14% higher in science, 5% higher in social science, and in writing, we are just, what is that? It's like 1% higher than Springport in writing for economically disadvantaged. Next one, Ben. Parma Western. Again, this is a more like school system based on numbers and so forth. Our economically disadvantaged are around 5%. Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 5% higher in math than Western is, Parma Western. Economically disadvantaged are around 6% higher in reading. They are around 6% higher in science. They are around 4% higher in social studies or science, and they're just a little higher than their average in Parma Western in regards to writing. So when the stats came through, go to the next one, please. When the stats came through, I saw somebody sharing some information on economically disadvantaged, and bless her heart for looking at the data because I think it's great. But you have to really look at all the internal data that we can gather from this information, pull it together, and do the analysis to demonstrate to you that Marshall is doing a better job serving economically disadvantaged students than any other district neighboring your school district. And this represents students that already reside in Albion going to Marshall and residing in other locations going to Marshall. It's not just a homogeneous group of folks. It's actually a diverse group of folks. And we have students that reside in Albion that are both in the economically disadvantaged group and the non-economically disadvantaged group. So I want to put to rest that question. Okay? I left a printout copy of this demonstration for you for your notes with Sue in case you guys want to get a copy yourselves. And also I gave one to Joni as well. Okay? Anybody have any questions on this stuff? Any comments?
Yeah, I'm wondering, so the first kind of stuff, I'm thinking about the gap, and the fact of the gap and the idea of the gap, and this is not like a yes/no question, but I'm just from a kind of curricular educational point of view, like what accounts for gaps getting smaller? Because obviously, as long as those lines are going up and the gap is getting smaller, this is good, right? This is what we
Yes,
want.
absolutely.
Like, do you have any sense of what accounts for, like, why does it get smaller?
We do. Well, we have a premise that we're working on.
Okay.
If you read the literature, you're going to find all kinds of literature out there about gap. And the question that was raised about, is gap larger as kids come into kindergarten? Gap is always larger when kids first enter school. And a lot of that has to do with when we're talking about comparison groups of economic and non-economic. We're talking about resources. We're talking about availability of parents to be with their children and help them learn at home.
Right.
We're talking about parent engagement and connection with the public school system and partnering with the teachers and helping to educate their child. And we're talking about how well the child engages themselves in the learning environment and how well the child sees themselves as part of the learning environment and an equal partner in that. And so everything we've been doing is about equal access and balancing out what every single building has. So when I first came to Marshall in 2009, each one of our 3 elementary schools, if you went there, I would hear from folks that would move into the district. And if they were working for the hospital and they were physicians, they wanted to go to Walters Elementary because it was the newest building, it looked great. It's a wonderful building. If you go over there, it's beautiful. There were some that said that because it's a neighborhood school system, they wanted to just go to the school that was in their neighborhood. Invariably, what happened is we had a larger percentage of students that were economically disadvantaged going to Hughes. Because in that side of Marshall, there's more middle to lower income than up towards Walters Elementary. Gordon Elementary was really a kind of interesting misnomer. It was pretty balanced, but still lower than Hughes. The other thing was our class sizes were different. There were class sizes in 5th grade across all 3 buildings that varied, where one class might be 28 in 5th grade, and one class might be all the way down to 22 because of the model we have there. And so what I came back with is class sizes at grade level have to be even across all 3 buildings. Services that we provide and resources we provide in every one of those buildings has to be the same. When we talk about economically disadvantaged, we are going to try to balance that so we have a more balanced group in each of the buildings, so one's not a whole lot less than the other. When we have unique creative services like our the immersion that we do at Binder Park Zoo for a week, we teach all 4 core content areas at Binder Park Zoo. It's really a wonderful program. It started in Gordon. I insisted that it become a exemplar program that we implement across all 3 elementaries. So Hughes and Walters started this year in that program. We have Annie's Big Read that goes on over there at the Nature Center. It's a great program. We're implementing that now across all 3 buildings. The whole issue is I don't want one 5th grader, one 3rd grader, one 2nd grader experiencing one thing that the other kids can't experience as far as equity and access. Now that doesn't take away the culture and climate of the building. It doesn't take away the impact the teachers have in that environment and the impact administrators have in that environment. But we try to balance it as best we can, and then we hold the standards high. And so the National Blue Ribbon School for Academic Achievement, as assessed over a 5-year period of time, was Gordon Elementary, not Walters. Walters is a little concerned about that. And they're working really hard to be in the next National Blue Ribbon School. But Gordon was the one to distinguish themselves in that way. And so I just want you to know that these things are important. The findings from this IDEX group is virtually without exception, Marshall's economically disadvantaged population outperforms the economically disadvantaged populations at peer districts. And without exception, Marshall's economically disadvantaged reading performance is well above the peer averages in the area. Yeah. Yeah, part of it was a change in some curriculum work that we were doing with our backwards design model. In 2009, when I came, we had they were already doing a research group on the backwards design model for instruction. And I called them in August and said, okay, gut check time. Because this was developed by a whole group of teachers and administrators around the district. And I said, if you're ready to put your reputation to this, and I mean teachers standing up and telling your colleagues, this is the program you have to get with, and we're going to go forward as a district, that became our platform for performance. And in 2010, we implemented it. 2011, we got better. 2012, we got better. By 2013, we started clicking. It's basically an approach on how you work instruction from what are the essential questions of each content area and in each area that you're teaching. And then you talk about how are we going to know when students can demonstrate competency in each of those and can respond to each of those essential questions. And then how do we know, along with formative assessment, how do we know with end of the unit design assessments and so forth, and we work our way back. The last thing we do is develop the teaching instructional lesson planning. So you start with the end in mind and you work backwards until you come up with how are you going to actually teach it. So you work through the end design, you work through how you assess it, and you eventually get to how am I actually going to teach it on a day-to-day model. And so we're much better at it now. That's one thing. I think balancing was also in 2013, 2012. I don't know if you heard the scuttlebutt, but I was trying to think about reconfiguring elementaries. And one of the things that came out of that was really equity. And that's where equity and access came out of. I want to make sure that every child has equal access to a quality education that we provide. And so balancing that out across the buildings was the best way to do it, and I think we're starting to see the results of it. Anything else on this?
This includes the alternative high school as well, right?
The alternative high school is assessed in the 11th grade with the MME. They're not assessed in regards to MEP scores. MEP score assessment stops on 8th grade. They do 9th grade, but it's really only, I think it's only social. No, I think it's social studies or writing, one or the other. And writing and social studies and science are intermittent. They're not as consistent as they assess on reading and math. Anything else? Okay, so we're going to go into the conversation about the competitive grant proposal. Sue, can I grab one of those waters over there?
Is he using the community board for this? I know, but I'm thinking
At your table, you have a copy of the competitive grant we submitted for 22G relative to annexation. And I got to tell you, there were 3 districts that submitted on time and met the deadline. We believe there's only 2 of us that are actually eligible for funding, and we also believe that we're probably in a better position with Albion in regards to moving forward with quality points, because last night, if you haven't read the newspaper or weren't in the meeting, Marshall's school board passed unanimously the resolution to pursue annexation of Albion Public Schools. Yeah, I think so. That's worth it. I'm not going to go through this whole narrative. It's really our story together. And but I want to highlight a couple things, just a few things with this. One of the questions they asked in the grant was, state why you are pursuing consolidation or annexation and the goals of the project. And so in the narrative, we talked about the history of collaboration and partnership between our 2 districts, taking a more and pursuing a more regional approach to providing more opportunities for quality educational programs to our students regionally. I mentioned 10,010, the shared educational entity with our alternative education program or high school coming to Eastern Academic Center within your district with your approval as a board. 2011, forming our joint committee on collaboration. 2012, creating the Opportunity School through the Kellogg Foundation grant so that we can help our young people that are non-traditional learners experience the opportunity for college. 2013, entering into a cooperative agreement with Albion for high school. 2014, adding the Michigan Youth Challenge program for our most disenfranchised students that are out there at risk of dropping out of school. 2015, our first ever early college in Calhoun County. 2015, our kickoff of our regional skilled trades and engineering partnership, which you have an invitation in front of you about that, and I might mention that a little bit later. Then the 2016 expansion of the cooperative agreement to include middle school at mid-year, which by the way has never been done between two districts in the state of Michigan. So we do have our challenges in front of us, but we also have some incredible opportunity knocking on the door. I also talked about equal access to a quality education for all, regardless of the student's circumstance or context in which they come from. Both districts face declining enrollment, leading to reductions in services, either actually experienced through Albion's process or through Marshall's. We've cut services, and we project that we're going to cut more if we don't continue to maintain our stability with enrollment. And the way to do that in a state that has declining enrollment every year since 1999 because of low birth rates and families moving out of the state is to build partnerships and collaborations like we're doing with Albion. So when people look at this annexation, this is about us finding a way to be much more successful together than apart. Our goals are to provide stable, high-quality teaching and learning environments at every grade level, to create a more diverse global learning environment to better prepare our students, to build capacity in Albion by retaining students still committed to the Albion schools, and attract those students who have left to come back and reinvest in a stronger school system through Marshall. To keep a strong community-centered school in the Albion community serving pre-K to 5, to stabilize our operating budget in Marshall to maintain at least a 5% fund balance and keep the myriad of service options that we have available for our students open. And finally, to enhance and leverage our partnerships more fully with KCC, Albion College, Star Commonwealth, but all the communities in which we serve, and our manufacturing and business base around our region. Those are our goals for annexation. Those are our goals for the 22G. Another question they asked is provide a clear explanation of each step of the project. Well, I talked about the preparation phase, that this was really about fact-finding and information sharing in our submission of the 22G. I got to tell you, fact-finding was hard, wasn't it? Every single day there was another interpretation or a different decision. Every single day there was new information coming to light. And what people don't understand is this process, there is no roadmap. There is no formula. The state treasury doesn't know what the model needs to look like. They just know what the circumstances are. It's up to us to build the model that we think is going to work. It's up to us to take a look at the information that we have and work forward in the best interest of kids. Our partnering phase, after Marshall and the MDE and Albion are all on board, and the Albion board calls the election for May 9th, 2016. We stand together at that point to share out how annexation will impact the stakeholders of the communities we serve. So right now, you pass a resolution, then we pass a resolution. Now it's going to the State Superintendent of Public Instruction. The governor will review it. They'll do a determination on whether they want us to go forward. It'll come back and both boards will be informed of that. You will call the election if indeed that's the direction you're going on February 8th in time for the ballot language to be submitted to the county clerk on February 9th by 4 o'clock so it can be on the May election. And then it's in the voters' hands of Albion. What better scenario could that be? So when we're talking about our partnering phase, that's when we get busy. That's when we start talking about the facts and sharing out the impact together cohesively because we've done this consensus vote. Planning phase following the May election, and when the annexation is approved by the voters, we will be working on closing out the school year for Albion successfully. We'll be setting timelines for capital improvements in Albion that are within the 22G grant. We'll be posting for positions, building capacity for our transportation department, building capacity for technology, for food service, those types of things. We'll also be having communications with the community in Albion about what they want to do with their facilities, so we can understand what our direction needs to be in that. And we built some money in the grant as well to address building issues. And then we go to the implementation phase. In our resolution, we put July 1, 2016 as the date that annexation would occur. That's the beginning of our fiscal year. It's a little risky because we won't have all your books closed by then. We don't close our books, really. I mean, we close our books, but things trickle in over the next 30 days. That's the reason why we don't have the independent auditors coming in until the middle of August, usually, to start looking at our year end. What we did get some assurances from the Treasury Department is that they will be responsible with the supports that they have from Bruce Caswell and whoever else they're going to bring in to help you with your books, to be able to work your way through year end and to also be able to take you through an independent audit so we can close off the books completely for the Albion School District in regards to liabilities and obligations. Okay? Which is great because then we can be about implementing the model that we've talked about. The implementation phase, it will be going fast and furious, but of course, there's a lot of water that needs to go under the bridge before we get there, but once we get there, we're going to be working really hard on maintaining a community-centered school here with a pre-K 5, on making sure that our process between the two communities is seamless, that our transportation is supportive of the families here in Albion, and that we have good communication, open communication throughout our entire district, which, by the way, at annexation will more than double the square mileage of our district of Marshall, and will go from 10,000 voters and taxpayers to 18,000 voters and taxpayers. So with that, I'm going to invite Becky Jones. She is my Director of Business Operations, up to talk to you a little bit about the finances that are in your packet as well, and how we group these things together.
Hi. In the packet on page 8, if you guys want to follow along with me, we broke it down by function code. So I'm going to go through it, and then you can go ahead and ask me any questions or any other detail that you may need if it's not within there. So under basic programming, there's a budget of about $188,000. That total budget will be spent on classroom instructional supplies and resource materials such as textbooks, math modules, science kits, classroom supplies. These materials will be purchased to align with Marshall Public Schools curriculum. There will be stipends for professional development for both Albion and Marshall Public Schools staff for 1 week in August to align the curriculum and instructional practices. There's also a stipend for professional development for the Albion Marshall teachers for cultural competence to help with the smooth transition between teachers and students. And lastly, there's unemployment costs underneath there. Under support services, the budget is about $92,000, and the total budget will be spent on salary and benefits for central office staff in Albion and Marshall for time spent on annexation. And this is to help offset costs that we both already have in our budgets for the year. This will also help with additional costs for audit, for merging all the liabilities and assets, attorney fees for both districts, election costs, appraisals of buildings, and the real estate costs. Under support service business, there's about a budget of $31,000 in there. This will be spent on interest for the notes and loans, as well as salary and benefits for the finance officers in both Albion and Marshall for the time spent on annexation. Underneath operation and maintenance, we have about a budget of about $585,000. The total budget will be spent on modifying the current high school building at Albion, which you guys are operating K-8 out of, to allow for 2 educational groups to operate out of this location, which would be the alternative high school possibly and a K-5. And to raise, we also put money in there in case we need to raise buildings that you guys currently own. For pupil transportation services, we put in a budget of about $766,000. The total budget will be spent on 8 77-passenger conventional school buses with 2-way radio capable to reach Marshall Public Schools Transportation Department. As you well know, currently you guys don't own and operate your own fleet, and Marshall Public Schools does. And to make this a successful transition, we would need to have the buses to operate our own fleet. Under Support Service Central, this is a technology budget of $928,000. To have a successful annexation, this is just a budget we've gone through and kind of gotten some quotes on migrating your students over into the current information system. We would have to update the wireless in the building in order for the staff to use the wireless as they do at Marshall Public Schools. Phone systems, as well as DNS and the domain server would need to be upgraded here. We also have community activities for $40,000, and that total budget will be spent on the youth symposium and day camps, and that includes the cost of travel. And then lastly, there's $3.6 million on long-term liabilities, and that is the deficit that Albion is currently faced with today. And I wanted to point out that grant total was about $6.2 million. Of that $6.2 million, $3.6 is going to pay off debt. And there is about $123,000 available to us to spend leading up to annexation for both districts. So, does anybody have any questions?
What do you mean, what do you mean 123,000 available for both districts leading up to?
For the services that we already are doing. So for election costs, attorney fees, employees' time spent on it, underneath those two sections, we've put money in there to kind of cover both districts' costs while we go through annexation.
I know at one time, I thought there were people walking through the building. Do we have any kind of assessment in terms of the value of our buildings?
You
that
guys
we have?
hired the people to do the appraisals on the building, and so you guys should have that.
So you don't have, that
I-
wasn't included in?
The cost was included in here to pay Albion back for
Oh,
those
okay.
services, yes.
But the information, where is it? Do you have
We're
it?
supposed to get one report at the end of the week.
Oh, okay.
and
You,
one with
you guys hired the people to do it. I just included the cost to make sure that you guys got reimbursed for that in the grant,
Okay.
okay? If I can help, I
No,
would, I don't know.
I didn't know if,
Okay.
So the total,
you had, I'm thinking,
Yeah, yeah.
it's coming. Did you all use that information when you?
Yes,
did-
I
okay.
talked to Dale about it.
Okay, so you.
So, yeah, Dale and I worked together on the costs that we believe that for Albion and Marshall, and this about $123,000 that we were sharing, so.
My question is, the appraisals that we
Mm-hmm.
pay for, like to assess the buildings and the stuff in the buildings, was that information used?
Because the results aren't back yet.
We don't have it yet?
That's what Sue just said, is we're expecting.
Oh, that's
so.
what you said.
Yeah,
Yes.
they
All
came
right.
in and did an inventory in
Yeah, I
every
remember
classroom
that.
in every one of our buildings. They said we should have it at week's end.
Let me just take a
Okay.
moment to clarify.
I got it, thank you.
Vivian, when you asked about the people walking around the buildings, that was strictly for the appraisal that you, as an Albion district, hired to do. We brought over our partners in our bond, King Scott and CSM, who came in just simply to look at the layout of the hallways and the common areas, that if we were going to modify the high school for multiple purposes, what would it cost us to be able to do that? And they came in with about an $85,000 estimate for the minor changes that I was recommending initially, so that we could put that into the grant. So there's about $85,000 in there for modifications of this facility that is covered under the grant if it's approved.
the total budget that you requested was 6 point something, right? On a 5 mil grant. I assume there are two reasons why y'all came in at higher than what we know we can ask for. And I'm just gonna say them to make sure that they're the reasons for it. One, to make it more likely that we get all the 5, and and also to show further need in case so that we could come back the next year and ask for it again. Is that the reason why we asked for more than we know we can get?
Well, it actually, the numbers turned out to be 6.2.
So that, okay.
So what that does,
That's how we're gonna play it.
there you go, Nels. So what that does, though, is exactly what you're talking about. It
Yeah.
creates leverage. It educates folks that are looking at this annexation on the cost.
Yep.
We've had some incredible conversations with our legislators, with Treasury, with MDE. We've got it verified that if there is a 22G line item in the budget for next year with money in it,
Yep.
we are still eligible to pursue a competitive grant to see if we can get some of that. So we're going to be able to get what we get this year in the 22G,
Right.
and then try to figure out how do we wrap our arms around the rest of that. And it's a moving target.
Yep.
As much as you guys want to think it's static, it's not. We don't even know what you're going to end the year with. And, you know, it could be anywhere from 3.1 to 3.6, even 3.8, I heard the other day. So we're not sure what's going to happen with that. But what we can tell you is that as we move through this, we're openly having these conversations with everybody we can about what can you do for this to make this model successful.
And just to you did get confirmation that we can go back next year if there's a line item. Because they said yes to that
Yes.
question. Okay.
Yep.
So I have a question. Hypothetically, let's say we don't get the 6.2, is it 6.2 you asked for? Say over the next couple of years, we don't get that. And we have this $3.6 million debt out here. I guess my question is Albion's debt like high on the priority list? Or is it possible that if the funds aren't there that you anticipate and ask for, that some of this debt could still be left with Albion and the rest of the money be used to do other things?
I've been saying since day one that we need to find a way to help your taxpayers and the board dissolve your debt. And we need to do that preferably before we start implementation phase, where we're actually feet on the ground, moving forward, providing quality services for our kids. Because I don't want to be saddled with that debt as we continue to work through that. So our priority is to pay that debt down, or to dissolve that debt any way we possibly can through Treasury and through MDE. If annexation doesn't go through, no matter what model you guys consider, you will have to resolve that debt one way or the other through the taxpayers. What we're trying to do is use the resources available to help dissolve that debt so that we can go on free of that debt and free of that burden on our shoulders as we try to implement quality services.
Can you just review one more time? Can you review the timeline points with respect to the 22G? When are we supposed to hear from them? Do you have that in your? I mean,
Well, that's evolving.
that's still evolving.
Well, we asked MDE to give us an answer before the February 8th date.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And they said they thought they could do that. And then we've had recent conversations with them where it's reasonable that we might be able to get that answer before we get out of January.
Huh.
But I'm not going to give a particular date because that all depends on a couple things up there in Lansing. I'm thinking that probably within the next week or two.
Okay.
You're good if you get it.
So I'm going to ask, when can the board expect to view the full grant in its entirety?
The only thing that's not in that grant are just simply schedules that were submitted, or like the copy of your resolution that you passed for annexation. That's the nuts and bolts of the whole thing.
So, again, so are you saying other than this is what we get? We don't get the full, whatever you submitted to the state?
If there's been a FOIA out there for a request, and on the 22nd, we'll put all those schedules together and send the whole shooting match, but it's no different than what you're going to read as far as the narrative and the narrative on the budget and the figures that are there on the budget. So there's no different information other than what I've been giving you and the board. You got what my board got yet last night.
So when you honor that FOIA request, can we get a copy of whatever you give that person that FOIA the information?
Sure, if you want to see the schedules, that'd be fine.
That, I do. I want to see the complete, entire application. Thank you.
And remember, it's an application. So it's only as good as the paper that it was written on until somebody says it's valuable. And MDE has to say it's valuable.
Right, but I think it's good reading material.
I'm sorry, what?
I said I think it'll be good reading material.
Okay.
This is what was submitted, page 1 through 11 for the reading material. The other stuff is just like backup, like a quote or something, so.
That's
just-
great.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, as we go on, I want to make one recognition before we go any farther. Also, you know, we talk about the state and that, and I want to recognize Greg Moore here tonight, which is staff for Mike Knopf's office. So we've had very, very good reception from all the legislature that we could get. Very, very good reception from the Lansing and making sure that Lansing's involved all the way through this. But they want us to be very involved also, so. Do you want to say anything, Greg?
I can tell you that we've been in constant Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to let you know that we've been partners with you now for several years. As you'll recall, Senator Knopf was instrumental in getting several $100,000 on 2 different occasions to help with the first cooperative agreement and the busing situation and some of the Title I bridge funding that didn't come down to Albion when it should have. So that's another open piece that we're looking to work with you on, as well as others, to make sure that the federal government fulfills its responsibility to the district and to Marshall to make sure the Title I funds that are owed to the district and to the students of this district follow through. So that's a piece that's a little more complicated, probably hasn't gotten a lot of discussion, but we're very interested because obviously the state is stepping up to the table. We've helped bridge some of the federal responsibility that they have that we don't believe was a state responsibility, but we stepped up anyway. But we want to make sure the federal government fulfills their obligation. So beyond that, I know in the last couple of days, in response to some questions that have come from board members and the president, we've contacted both MDE as well as Treasury to get some clarifications, and I have an entire folder here of data that's been pulled in the last 2 days by myself and our staff, and in response to some of the concerns and some of the findings that have taken place through this process, that it's not as straightforward, that there is a little bit of difficulty in determining what the way forward is. We're working with our legislative staff, we're working with our policy staff, and we're working with the governor's office to see what we can do going forward to make this process a little easier, because I know in a lot of cases you may feel like you're alone out there. This is, Albion's the only one facing this. I can tell you, as a matter of fact, you are not. There are other districts who will follow along in the next, we have one. We know Redford Schools has also applied for this 22G funding, so they're in a similar situation. And there are others that are coming. So we want to have a process in place that starts to nail down some of these things that you all are kind of going through for the very first time. So in a lot of respects, Senator Knopf has held Albion and Marshall and the cooperative agreement up as a model for the state in talking to his colleagues in the Senate, both the Appropriations Education Committee chair as well as the policy chair, to be looking at Albion as a way that this can be done and be done right. So you should feel very good about that a lot of people are looking, and when Dr. Davis says there are people who want to make sure this succeeds, I can absolutely tell you that's true. We do not want this cooperative agreement to fail. We do not want the annexation to fail if that is the choice that you all make for your community. it's very important to the future of the students and the community that it go forward in a positive manner. So we're there to work with you, and that's, I guess, what I'll leave you with is we're there to assist you in any way you need us to assist you and to support you and to make sure that together it is successful when the final decision is made. So any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next thing on the agenda. Financial report will hold off till next month because Dale is,
Smart. Thank you.
is not here. Board comments. Nels.
Yeah, I had a comment. What do I want to say? Justin knows this as well as anybody. I've been sort of bouncing back and forth of late between being like full of hope and good feeling for the future and being sort of anxious and depressed and angry. One of the things that happened of late that made me push me on an upswing was I read this newspaper article that featured a student of ours, Ataya, who is a 6th grader, and some of you know her. I met her, I had the good fortune to meet her a couple of weeks ago at one of these big read meetings, and I just want, if you are depressed and anxious and feeling bad, you should go read this article and just listen to the things that she says, because she, to me, is just like emblematic of the good students we have at Albion, and she is amazing. She is responding to a complicated, painful situation that she had no part in making, and she is specific and honest, and you know, exemplary, I guess is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like, I read what she said about her situation, and I was not just impressed by it, but I thought, oh, I need to talk this way and act this way. So you should go read it. And I think one of the things she said, which is hard to hear, is that, and it was about us up here, she said, like, they don't have to go. You know what I mean? They make this decision, but they don't have to go, and I do. And I hear that. And she said, and nobody asked me. And so I think that we should just keep in mind that we should often turn to the kids and ask them questions about what's going on with them. Not because I think we should do what they say necessarily. I'm not suggesting we should that the children should rise up and make decisions for themselves. But I do think we have a lot to learn from them. I think we have a lot to learn from them. And I just wanted to make sure that we're all asking them questions and listening to them.
Mandy. Shane. How's the baby? Come on.
The baby is good.
Good.
I'm good.
Well, I will say something. I read the article, and I was very impressed with what she had to say. One of the other things that I noticed that she said regarding they don't have to go, we do. But she also said, I want to get a quality education. And this is one of the ways I can get a quality education. And what I read into that is sometimes change is necessary. You know, sometimes it may be painful, just like going away to college or leaving home or leaving the nest of parents and loved ones. Change can be frightening, but it may be necessary if it's in the best interest of the students. And so that was another way I looked at what she was saying. During the next 3 weeks, so to speak, maybe 2 weeks now, this week is almost gone, we're going to have to do a lot. A lot is going on. I know I've been talking with a lot of people at Albion College in marketing and communications about the possibility of specials, and we're going to try to do some of the things we were thinking of in terms of maybe bringing back some of the specials just for this semester. About bringing the chamber on board, soliciting support from KCC. So there's a lot that we have to do, but I guess I feel invigorated. I feel excited because this is change. Change is difficult, but we are the ones to make the necessary adjustments to make it happen and to make it successful for our students. And when she said, I know that I'm not learning everything I should learn, so to speak, then I feel as an adult, as one of the leaders on the board, that it's my responsibility to do whatever I can to make sure she gets the best quality education she can. So that's just my perspective and how I looked at it.
Thank you. This is a hard meeting for me tonight, being this my last meeting as president for this year, because we'll be going into elections through reorganization. And I wanted to cap a little bit on, what has happened, not per se on individual achievements or individual what we did, but as a board, I really wanted to talk about myself for a couple seconds, because it's been very, very hard for me to keep up with Vivian at all these Monday morning meetings. Every Monday morning, as you know, that the president and vice president goes to a Monday morning meeting, or we try to work with Marshall on this. I believe that's going to get harder and harder all the time. But the board etiquette that we show and we have here, we have to really look at what we're doing and how we're doing things. And, it's been very hard for me not to talk to the press. And because once you're president, you don't have your own opinions anymore, because everybody asks you, and it's the opinion of the board at that point in time, because you are the board president. I don't think people understand that. And I know Vivian was president last time, and it's very, very difficult, and I really didn't realize it either, that when the press would ask me, well, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? My answer would be either we haven't voted on that, or you can get that out of our minutes. Because as a board, we talk as one voice. And that's what I've got to be proud of the board, is we do talk as one voice as a board. That's things that we learn in 101. So as we go through and we're working on this coming up next year, we're going to have a lot of work to get done, and we've got to work hard on it. I was really happy to see a lot of other things that are going on around the community. This community has a lot to look forward to, and the school system's going to be one of them. Thank you. I will then turn this over to Joan, our superintendent and principal.
I have a letter here on behalf of Terrence Lunger, the ISD superintendent. I'd like to read this to you. It says, on behalf of the Calhoun Intermediate School District Board of Education and staff, I would like to thank you for the continued commitment that all of you make and the leadership you provide to the students, staff, and community of your local school district. The effort and dedication that is required to serve as a successful school board member is significant, and it is nearly 25,000 students who attend in Calhoun County's 13 local school districts are indeed fortunate to have school board members like you, setting policy and ensuring that all children succeed. He says, congratulations, well done. And the ISD Board of Education sends this recognition resolution January 2016. Whereas the boards of education of the constituent. School districts in the Calhoun ISD have renewed their commitment to ensure that all children succeed and failure is not an option, and the board members voluntarily make a personal commitment of countless hours and energy to that goal. And whereas these Board of Education understand the need to be creative and adapt to an ever-changing and challenging political, social, regulatory, and economic environment while protecting valuable programs for students. And whereas school boards play an important and vital role in supporting an education system that is the foundation upon which Michigan's economic, social, and intellectual capital and future is built. And whereas board decisions affect the present and future lives of children and set the direction to prepare our students to be competitive around the world, ultimately affecting the lives of 1.5 million Michigan students and more than $12.7 billion in education investments. And whereas these boards of education encourage traditional and non-traditional partnerships among and between local school districts, intermediate school districts, and unique community, business, and agency organizations that will better assist them in helping to create success for their students. And whereas the individual citizens that are members of these boards of education have a strong commitment to the creation of safe, caring, and enriching learning environments that ensure that our communities are strong and nurturing. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that during January School Board Recognition Month, the Calhoun Intermediate School District Board of Education celebrates and commends the commitment, leadership, and creativity of the individual school boards of education in Calhoun County. So thank you so much for your service. I'll go right on into a real quick principal's report for you. There's been a whole lot going on, a lot of work in our own community with our students and with our parents, as well as work with administration at Marshall. One of the things that is foremost on our list of events is tomorrow, an open house at Marshall from 6 to 8 p.m. And we have a busing schedule that's absolutely wonderful for anyone that wants to take the bus there. I'll be getting this information out to parents tomorrow, one way or another. There's actually 2 bus runs going to the open house. One will be here at 5:30 to pick up Albion residents here at the school. They'll leave at 5:45, arrive at Marshall Middle School at 6, and then there'll be a bus coming back at 6:45 and pick up another group that wants to go at 7 and bring them back here at 8. So nice way to get parents and families to the open house that want to take advantage of that transportation. So that information will be gotten out to our families yet tomorrow. There's the option there to have a guided tour of the building or to walk around on your own, and also they will assist families with any registration packets and answering questions. So that's next on our list as far as working through this whole process. Now spoke about listening to our students. We have an opportunity with Jess Roberts coming to us on Thursday afternoon, meeting with our 6th through 8th graders individually in grade level groups. She'll be meeting with them in here for some discussion for about 45 minutes. I think that's critical, again, to hear what they have to say. Quite often they come up with ideas that we don't think about. Quite often they express themselves in ways that really are quite amazing, and we see a different side of them. We're actually going to have Nels and Jess run the group talk with them and excuse other staff from that, just because I want to make sure they can say what they want. They know we all have opinions, and I'd like for them to feel free to talk in any way that they'd like to. But they've been very expressive, come and see me quite often. There have been some things hanging in my office that they've written down for me, and they're so amazed that they're hanging up. But we want them to know that what they're saying is important to us, and so those discussions will continue to be ongoing. Classrooms are already having weekly, if not more often than once, discussions with the kids I urge the staff, especially when they initiate, to have those discussions and be able to talk about this, because this is a really big deal to these kids. So just to kind of bring you up to speed, we're just about finished with NWEA testing. Some absence testing to be done yet, but we'll soon have results of those and some comparative values for us, some data that we can talk about. You got a schedule from me a couple weeks ago on teacher evaluations. Those walkthroughs have begun, and I'll be spending time in the classrooms, and then formal observations and evaluations will start by the end of the month. January 18th is an important day to our staff. We have Star coming back over to do session 3 of a year-long professional development for our teachers. I've heard comments like, Tisha, you could probably speak to this, heard comments like this is some of the best training we've had in a long time, most applicable in our classroom and with our students, has a lot to do with, it's called the Circle of Courage, has a lot to just do with building environments in which, in the classrooms or in the building, in which all of our students thrive. Okay, not just survive or not just get through the day, but thrive. And so a lot of good information for our staff and a lot of good training. So that continues on the 25th. I think that's the 18th. Oh, yes, the 18th. Sorry, the 18th. Thank you. I think that's about it. So, moving on there. Okay, we'll move on to the elections portion of this meeting. So I need a motion to declare all offices of the Board of Education vacant.
So moved.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. I need a motion for a president. Mike?
I'd like to move Vivian Davis to be president of the board. Can I move that we accept Vivian Davis, close nominations for president? Okay.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Vivian Davis is president.
Thank you, everyone.
It's a good time to
Have
just
you
do
run-
it.
Vivian will have you run the rest of the meeting then.
Next, we will have election of the vice president. May I have a motion? May I have,
I'd like to
nominations?
nominate Nels Christensen as vice president of the board.
Support.
It has been moved and, are there any other nominations? This is not. Okay. It has been moved and seconded to nominate Nels Christensen for, vice president. Is there further discussion?
Can I discuss this? Really, can I?
Yes.
I guess I'm very happy to serve in this way. I just have my only slight concern about it is that I feel like I've been able in some kind of way to be of some sort of use in terms of running sort of organizing meetings in the community. And I feel like that's one thing I know that I've been able to do as a board member, and I want to make sure that whatever the responsibility happens to be of being the vice president, that I don't have to somehow choose between doing that kind of work that I know is really important and whatever work is going to be coming my way as a result of being the vice president. So I guess I was just hoping, I was just thinking about like more meetings, you know what I mean? Like I'm hoping that there's a way, if I'm elected president, that we can figure out how I can continue to do the stuff I have been doing by somehow, you know what I mean? Like, I want to make sure I don't have to stop doing that stuff, and that I also don't die from so many more meetings, right? Clapping from Jess.
Actually, Nels, you will be busy, because one of my goals is to reinstate some of the committees that we once had, or add new committees. And there's a need for what you are doing and what we would like for you to continue to do, so it will not die.
But we're here to support.
Right.
Right.
I mean, so like, if there might be things that meetings that a vice president tends to go to now that might be better served by someone else going to, so someone else can, okay. I'm good with it.
Okay.
That, so as long as we're on that subject, there's probably a different time that I should ask or suggest this. But the meetings that happen on Monday, I think that it would make more sense to have the president and the treasurer attend those than the president and the vice president. And so I'd like to have us consider that option for those Monday morning meetings.
We can address that, because they are 7:30 in the morning, and it depends on, you know, the
Schedules and
scheduling and
okay.
things like that. So
Okay.
we will talk about that as a meeting, as far as that. Okay, shall we have the vote? All in favor, please say aye. Are you chilly?
Aye.
Oppose? Nels, welcome, congratulations, and I look forward to working with you.
I got you.
Now we would like to get nominations for secretary.
I nominate Shane Williamson for secretary of the board.
Support?
Oh, it has been moved and, it has been moved and second that Shane Williamson. Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to move that nominations be closed for secretary.
Support?
Okay, is there further discussion?
Call the question.
Call the question.
You don't have to, there's only one nomination.
Okay, there's only one nomination, so you are elected by acclamation.
Congratulations. He couldn't cheat it out of his eye.
Well,
I don't feel cheated at all.
Does he want to say aye to all of them?
We're sitting pretty over here, it's all right.
Okay, now we'll have the election of, a nomination for treasurer.
I'd like to nominate Kevin Metz as treasurer of the board,
Support?
and I close for further nominations and call the question.
This is, I know you don't do, okay, it has been moved in second to nominate Kevin Metz. Is there further discussion?
Move that nominations be closed on treasurer.
Okay, nominations are closed with treasurer, and since Kevin is the.
Oh, no, I want my eyes. You're lucky I'm not using parliamentary procedure
Yeah, I
to
know,
request a roll
we've
call.
blown the whole thing already. Yeah. All in favor of electing Kevin Metz for treasurer, please say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstentions? Motion passes. Congratulations, Mr. Treasurer.
All
Kevin.
new officers, congratulations. Okay.
Just would like to say, we look forward to working. Thank you to the board members for volunteering, so to speak, and for on your elections. And everyone is going to work together. So just because the certain little top titles are there, that doesn't mean a lot, because we're going to work together. We have a lot to do within the next 5 months. And I mentioned the idea of reinstating committees, because I think everyone can't be present for everything. So we're looking at right now, and we're going to talk about this later. Finance is very important. We need a finance committee. We need a marketing committee. That is going to be very important. I would like for you to think about the possibility of an annexation committee, you know, to work with the different groups in terms of coordinating and keeping us informed regarding annexation, and of course, parent involvement. And parent involvement is a part of all of these, but, you know, at least those are some ideas that I would like for us to consider as we move into the extension of the cooperative agreement as well as preparing for annexation vote. Okay, now we're down to new business. And the first item of new business is the appointment of CASVA delegate and alternate for 2016 academic year. Would someone like to nominate a delegate for CASVA? Presently, I was elected vice president of CASVA, but, you know, if someone else would like to attend, the meetings are once per month. And basically, you know, it's a good opportunity to hear what is happening in other districts. Of course, Albion had more news last time, you know, in terms of an update of what's happening in Albion and Marshall. But, you know, it's a good opportunity to network as well as get informed and share what is happening in our community and our school district.
I'd like to move Vivian Davis be our delegate to CASBA because she is vice president of CASBA and needs to be there.
Support.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that I continue in the role, you know, of attending the CASBA meetings as well as vice president. The president of CASBA is Richard. So it's just kind of ironic that he and I are representing, you know, the Calhoun County School Board Owners Association. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. This is, it could be the, and we also need an alternate. An alternate? Would you like to be the alternate? Since you
I
have.
did that already.
So have I.
I nominate Mike to be the alternate.
Support.
Okay. Mike, it has been moved and second to nominate Mike to attend when I'm not available. He has been there, done that, and is familiar with what is happening there, so I think he would be a good choice. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, congratulations, Mike, and I'll let you know when I can't be there.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Okay. Okay, next we need to look at our regular meeting dates and times. Normally, we meet on the second Tuesday of each month with the work session on the first Tuesday. Is that okay with everyone as it stands right now? Okay. Recommended action, can we have recommended action to that effect, please?
Sure. I move that the board keep our regular meeting time such that our business meetings will be the second Tuesday of each month, starting at 7 p.m. in this room, and that our work sessions will be the first Tuesday of each month, again, starting at 7 p.m. in this room.
A second.
Okay, it has been moved and second that we continue meeting on the second Tuesday of each month at 7 o'clock with the work sessions. On the first Tuesday, is there further discussion? I just have one thing. Next, the first Tuesday of of February is the MLK Convocation at the Bone Theater, sponsored by NAACP and Albion College, and it's the same time as our work session. You know, we may want to, you know, we don't have to do it right now, but we may want to change the work session because I think we should be in attendance. We may want to change the work session to a different day, just for next month. Okay. Is there further discussion?
Can I move that we go ahead right now and cancel our work session for that day?
We already have a motion on the floor.
Oh, okay. There's already a motion on the floor.
Since we have a motion on the floor, you want to,
Call the question.
Just call the
call the
question.
question,
Yep.
and this is something that we can discuss informally. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, we will continue, and it will be posted, the change in terms of, for the work session. Now we have approval of the assistant superintendent's contract. You received the contract in your board packet, and I'm sure everyone has read it. Can we have a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract as written.
Support.
Okay, it has been moved and second to approve the assistant superintendent's contract as presented. Is there further discussion?
I wanted to, I think, just affirm something or point something out on point number 6 on the contract. Administrators' performance shall be evaluated at least annually using multiple rating categories that take into account data on student growth as required by Section 1249 of the revised school code. I just wanted to read that out loud because for a number of reasons. One, I've been impressed with the systems that Joni's already put in place for the evaluation of teachers, and I feel like we have a responsibility to do just as good a job of creating a logical, clear, effective system of evaluation, not only because it's required of us, but because we want to do a good job of supporting her. I also know that I'm not exactly sure how to create such a good system. So I think what I'm saying is that I'm reminding us that it's our job to do this thing and to do it well. And I think that we need your help, maybe. I know that I need your help, Joni, in terms of thinking about what a good system of evaluation would look like with respect to our evaluating you. So I'm hoping that we can talk to you about that, and so we can do a good job. I know we have maybe not done a great job of that in the past, and I think we should. And it seems to me like an easy thing to lose sight of in the next, months when we're doing everything else. But we should not lose sight of this because it's our responsibility, and we want to do a good job of it.
I think what the board has done, we've already adopted an instrument of evaluation for the superintendent. I think we can modify that or review that in terms of looking at her goals and objectives for the next 5 months and use that as a criteria in terms of evaluation. We adopted last year the MASB model of evaluation, and that was approved by the board, and so far it has worked, but this is something that we will have to work with her individually on because it's not for a year, it's only for 5
That's right.
months. So, but I think we have a good start on
Okay.
that. We just have to follow through.
Call the question.
Okay. Okay,
Sonia
If-
called the question.
if there's no further discussion, all in favor of approving,
Roll call.
roll call, excuse me, this is we will have a roll call vote.
Christensen,
Yes.
Dubiel,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Netz,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Bierman,
Yes.
7.
Congratulations, you have 7. Thank you for accepting this challenge and these positions. And we are here to work with you and do whatever we can to help your job be as productive as possible.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Congratulations to Joni. Okay, now we're time for citizens' comments, statements.
Approval
Oh, excuse me,
The
approval of
consultants.
approval of the district consultants contract. Mr. Caswell isn't here tonight due to weather conditions, but we also have his contract that you received in your board package. May I have a
of,
motion?
I'd like to move that we accept the contract for a consultant as written.
Support.
Okay, it has been moved in second to approve the district consultant's contract. there further discussion?
Want to just make a note on this, that even though we're going into contract with him, it will be paid for by the Department of the Treasury as a reimbursement to us.
Well, I was gonna ask that question, because what it says in here is that the parties have relied upon assurances from the Michigan Department of
Yes.
Treasury that the department will reimburse.
Right.
Okay.
I wanted us to at least kind of maybe talk about this. There was just one line in here that made me pause a little bit, so I wanted to have us I wanted to at least talk about it, or have the opportunity to talk about it. It's on page 3, item 4 under termination. And to preface this, I was very impressed by Bruce. I'm happy that he's with us. I have nothing but the expectation of a great relationship with him. That said, my dad's a lawyer, so I read this stuff, right? And when I read the second sentence in here, it says the consultant, I think it's the second sentence, the consultant shall serve at the pleasure of the district, but may not be terminated without approval of the Michigan Department of Treasury. I just thought, like, whoa. I mean, so that's not a deal breaker for me, but I think that is what that is saying is we cannot end his contract without the Treasury saying it's okay, we do that. So long as that's okay with everybody else, it's okay with me. But it just is a little, it made me nervous just because it's just a lack of power, but it's probably not a big deal. We probably don't have the power anyway. You know what I mean? So did anybody else find that a little bit disturbing? And if not, it's totally cool.
Especially because we're relying upon assurances.
I mean,
I would
that's
feel
just
a
me.
lot better if it said.
That's probably just the
okay.
deal we have, and that's the deal we get, and we got to go with it. But I mean, that I just want to make sure that like that's there. That's what we're getting into.
But the sentence before that, upon the presentation of 10 working days, written notice to the other party. So if there's a problem,
Yeah.
of course, we will contact
Treasury.
Treasury.
Sure.
Yeah, so, I mean, no one is invincible, so.
No, I just
we
don't like being in the power of
anticipate
big,
anything,
huge
but,
institutions.
Yeah, he is hired by the treasurer, so that
Yep.
carries weight.
Call for the question.
Is there further comments regarding the contract? Hearing none, we are going to have a roll call.
DeVille,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Metz,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Behrman,
Yes.
Christensen.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Again, we welcome Mr. Caswell, and he comes with a lot of experience. And I think he's going to be good in helping us get through the remainder of the school year. Now we have citizens' comments. Do we have any more citizens who would like to? Garrett, are you getting up? I saw you motion. We had a new citizen to come in who wasn't here. If there are any more comments that anyone else would like to make.
Yes. Dr. Davis brought it to my attention. We need to have a board meeting on February 8th rather than our regular time of the night to call the resolution to call the election.
Okay,
So the board president can call that meeting, right?
so noted. Thank you.
Will that be in addition to or instead of Tuesdays?
Instead of.
Okay.
Well, you never know.
That's true.
But right now it's instead of.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can attend the 9th. Yours is on the 9th. When is yours? Yours is on the 7th.
20.
You'll do a special meeting? Okay. Do you think we need to do it before the 8th then?
On the 8th.
8th would be good. By the 9th. Right, okay. All right, thank you. Yes.
Good evening. I just wanted to take, Cheryl Mitchell, City Manager, and I just wanted to take a brief moment first to thank outgoing President Mike Bierman for your service and your dedication. I know it's been a challenging time for you, and we do appreciate all that you've put into your job here as president, so thank you. And also, I just wanted to congratulate the new president, Vivian Davis, and all the board members and officers. And I again stand with you as we go through this process. It's going to take a team effort. And on behalf of the city, we are here to partner with you as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We're down to announcements. Are there other announcements other than those that are identified on the agenda? Okay, and the meeting on the 8th is duly noted, and we will get information out regarding that. So the month of February really is kind of discombobulated in terms of our regular schedule, but that's okay. We've had a lot of discombobulation recently. So, and I too would like to say thank you to immediate past President Behrman for a lot. You know, you have done a lot. I think you have worked overtime, not only physically, but mentally, and always up here ready to go. So we would like to say thank you, and your tasks are not over. There are more.
My wife said, yes, they are.
Oh, his wife said, yes, they are. Okay. If there's no further business